Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for stage 15 of the Giro d'Italia. Where in the mountains? Where's the GC action? Mauro Veni knew all along. He knew. Stop complaining. Let me design my route and I'll give you some action, or maybe the riders will. And that's what we had today. A lot of altitude gains, still under 4,000 meters, but 3,800 from Fiume Veneto to Asiago, 220 kilometers long. Flat 104 Ks with the Murodca del Poggio, 1K 12.2% in the middle of that, 45 Ks in. Then the Monte Grappa, the easy side, 25 Ks, 5.7%, a lot of moderate climbing, descent, short valley. Then the Dori climb, if you are... I'm not smart enough to make the joke. I was going to talk about like the certain coral that the fish could crawl into and then the other fish can't get into because they're have certain skin tolerances. I don't understand it.
What?
Anyways,
There was an easy joke on one end from the Finding Nemo movie and an easy joke on the other end from Eurovision last year.
Maybe someone on that Dora climb's going to get cooked like a fish batter on a Friday. On Good Friday, they're going to get cooked in the chippy on Dory climb. And that's what happened today to a certain someone. 16.6 Ks, 5%, 30 Ks from the finish. So if you get dropped there, you could have... This is a Satellite Rider Deluxe. Me and Benji, we want to play this on our little PlayStations all day long, these sort of stages. Anything of this episode is brought to you by Pillar Performance. You know them already from the Giro. Word on one of their other products shortly. Anything pre-stage, Benji?
Well, we had some more news about yesterday's crash, basically. We weren't sure during the podcast yet who had actually hit the ground. It was Tiberi, indeed, the first rider of Bahrain to hit the ground. He felt like he was very hurt after that crash, so that might have consequences for today, but he did start. Ciccone ended up going out of the race, so the consequences of his crash were too severe. I think his DS was saying on TV that he had a contusion, a very deep contusion in the muscle that might get worse if he keeps on cycling, so that's why he ended up leaving the race. Very sad to see, because I like myself some Ciccone action, but maybe the cycling gods decided to nerf Little Trek because they've been on fire these last few days. And then we go on to the next three candidates there of that crash, and we see Del Toro, who actually also hit the ground, not necessarily super hard. He was more held up by it, and then another cyclist basically rode into him from behind, and therefore he hit the ground as well yesterday. So maybe some consequences towards today. Then Roglic also crashed in that crash. He ended up, I think, hurting his other hip in the crash yesterday as well. So basically, a lot of riders crashed yesterday. Spoilers. Nonetheless, we would eventually see today's stage start, and well, we were curious what's going to happen when it comes to the GC riders, but also when it comes to break formation, because you highlighted it already. Like, this is an opportunity for satellite riders. Can you get a rider of your team, a domestique, up ahead to be valuable after the Monte Grappa if you attack as a GC leader on the Monte Grappa? Or the other solution is a satellite rider to get over Dori to then have him on the flat after the Dori climb. There's two options there, but it's not necessarily super easy to get a satellite rider up the road and make him survive until the last 30 kilometers after two major mountains. So it would all depend on the situations in the race. But one thing was clear, breakaway formation started and a lot of teams were active. It was the typical breakaway formation, Patrick. So you've got the likes of Ineos and EF very active. Tarling was throughout trying to get in the breakaway. Turner as well. EF with multiple riders, whether it's Steinhauser, whether it's Cepeda, whether it's other riders of their team. So those were two teams that perhaps had a plan for GC today or wanted to go for the stage. And then it felt like 40% of the rest of the peloton also wanted to go in the breakaway today.
Exactly. When the breakaway has the green light, it's actually much harder to win from the break. It's a perverse way it works. Yesterday, breakaway had no green light whatsoever, red flashing light. Asgreen said, fuck you, Visma anyway, went in. And basically, who did Asgreen have to beat to win the stage? Actually, nobody
Maestri?
in the end. Yeah, Maestri.
Yeah.
But they helped him they were willing participants until he decided to go solo. Of course, he had to hold off the peloton chasing him. So, whereas today, it's going to be a break at 20. Jayco are going to get 2 in. Bardiani and Polti want 2 in. Then Trek with Ciccone out, they're going to want to make a statement. They want 2 in. And it multiplies and multiplies. And then once 2's in from a big team like Trek, well, then Visma want 1, UAE want 1. Bora actually were jumping with riders for the first time. I saw them trying to get in the break with Nico Denz. and then late subsequently it was Danny Martinez. But it was a breakaway formation in two parts, and you could see because that they learned from the other day on San Pellegrino. A lot of guys jumped. It didn't go. Eventually went on a climb, and the guys who waited like Plapp and saved their bullets got in. Today, actually, very few climbers were jumping on the flat. It was really like Ben Turner, Van Aert, Affini, Pedersen, Vacek, and the smaller guys were waiting for that Muro di Poggio, Benji.
Yeah, Muro del Poggio. Poglio? I think it's No, it's Poggio. I saw an L in there in my imagination, but it wasn't. It's actually Poggio, and I learned a few years ago on this podcast that Poggio means hill. I was like, why are there so many Poggios in Italy? Turns out it's just the name of a hill. Nonetheless, when it comes to that climb, that is the kind of escalation of a breakaway formation. You've got the initial phase of people trying to get ahead, and Patrick just said it. It was mostly the roller types, a few climbers that tried to join as well, but then you got this phase, the 10 kilometers before the Muro di Ca del Poggio, which is with about 45 kilometers into the race. The 10 kilometers before that, we saw a couple of riders basically doing a nature break, stopping by the side of the road. Wout van Aert went for a nature break at that point in the race, went to the side of the road, took a small piss, and went on again, tried to get back to the peloton in time for that climb. And I'm not sure he got there in climb, I'll be honest about that, because that climb really shattered the peloton, basically. Because on that climb, the peloton shattered into what seemed to me like 3 to 4 pieces. And that is because suddenly the climbers think, okay, we're on our ground, let's try and shatter this peloton, let's try and form this breakaway. And that's exactly what happens. Well, half. Because...
Well, there was an anticipation before with Hepburn and some guys who knew they'd get dropped if they waited. I can't remember who else was with him. They survived for a while, but then it was... I couldn't see which team was really launching it. Maybe Tudor with Stork, but then Nicola Conchi sends it, and he goes past those guys. I think the man to blame for a bit of nervousness was Simon Yates, moved up to P10 entering the climb, and then followed in P10, not letting gaps open. And then Del Toro, he has to be there, and then he's on Simon Yates' wheel. And then there's other people going, and then suddenly someone at maybe wheel 25, Benji, wheel 30, they drop the wheel, and there's a gap. And it's hard to tell if it's from positioning or legs.
Exactly, because we don't have cameras everywhere in the group, obviously. But you're saying in wheel 35, also the same happens in wheel 45, in wheel 65, in wheel 97, whatever. Like, we're talking about 4 pieces of the peloton after this climb, and to sketch what the situation looks like at this point, like, I'm telling you, most of the GC riders made it into that first part of the peloton. And then the second part of the peloton came back to that first part of the peloton fairly quickly. But in the third part of the peloton, which then became the second part of the peloton, obviously, there was Antonio Tiberi. He was not there alone. He had teammates. The entire team was pacing for Bahrain there. They were on a minute of that first part of the peloton after this climb. A full minute, started at 40 seconds, grew to a minute, grew larger than a minute to a minute 10 at a certain point. In that group next to Tiberi, also half of UAE, and maybe Piganzoli, because Polti Cometa was also somewhat there, very present to maybe pace as well. I'm not sure they actually hit the front or not, but they certainly were very present there near the front, near the Bahrain team. So you got a situation where it's kind of, how many riders? Maybe 45 riders in the first peloton, which then results in a situation where the riders that are there, there's limited riders to also control that situation. We just said it, half of UAE is in the group behind. And if Red Bull Bora, like you already said, is trying to jump in breakaways, then nobody's actually controlling the breakaway. So this peloton split was the perfect opportunity for a large breakaway to form without due diligence. What I'm trying to say is, without a controlling team being able to say, okay, that rider's not allowed in, that rider's not allowed in, it was just satellite rider bonanza. Is that a word?
It was, but what was curious to me, Benji, was basically this then break, which is actually all the GC guys sans Tiberi, splits perfectly in half with all the satellite riders that want to be in, go in, and no GC guy of any relevance. I've never seen it, usually on a flat section like this, somebody from even the guy 17th in GC tries to jump in. And no, I didn't really see it. No Arensman, no Pidcock, no Piganzoli, no Pellizzari, no Storer. Like, if Michael Storer went in, I think it would have been allowed. I mean, who's going to say UAE had what? Ayuso's going to stop Michael Storer jumping in personally when all his domestiques are with Tiberi? I don't think so.
No.
So I was surprised. I think commentary said at the time. Anyway, the break forms, big breakaway. I'll just do the main like GC relevant teams: Aliotti and Martinez for Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, Dool, Steinhauser, but I felt like it might have been Shaw and Steinhauser. EF were very, very strong again today. Godou, Rochat, Tarling, Turner, Frigo, Uhl for Derek G/stage, Cepeda, Formulo, Rubio for stage, Depreto, Plab, Zana for stage, Lemon for Yates, Brenner, Stork, stage, I would say. Arietta actually gets in himself. And Fortunato, over half of Astana, just about. Ulisi, Conti, Fortunato, Scaroni, and Konrad, Vacek, and Verona for Trek.
Exactly. And when you look at this group, it's a 35-man breakaway. That's a large group, which means that first, the gap is important because once that breakaway formed, it quickly became a group of 35 with a gap of roughly a minute, and then quickly it became 2 minutes as well. So the gap exploded very swiftly because the people that were in were the ones that wanted to be in. The only team that I'm pretty sure is not in this is Cofidis, because they didn't only miss the breakaway, they also missed the first part of the peloton during the entire breakaway formation split. So awful performance by Cofidis today. But like you say, this breakaway is 25 riders, and the important factor here is that it's not just breakaway riders, it's not just satellite riders. There's also one dude with GC ambitions. Einar Rubio is on 426 in GC with 2 teammates, and that kind of sets the scene for the next portion of the race. Because on one end, you've got UAE Team Emirates that they always overpace a little bit in the peloton. They keep the gap at 3 minutes 40, which actually I'm okay with at the moment, at this point in the race. But we see a couple riders from the breakaway. By the way, I got to mention a funny anecdote. When this large 35-man group formed, there were 2 riders. It was an EF rider with someone else that decided to still attack that group because the group was so large, they probably thought the peloton had called back up and they were trying to reinitiate a breakaway. But
Yeah,
that being said,
multiple times.
we ended up going to the Monte Grappa with this 35-man breakaway. This 35-man breakaway had the likes of De Preto, the likes of Vacek trying to anticipate on the climb, but it quickly became clear that Cepeda and Formulo, the Movistar boys, were pacing for Rubio to keep this breakaway going. And that was the tempo in the breakaway versus the tempo in the peloton set by UAE Team Emirates. And we quickly also saw that the big boys were in trouble. Yes, 25 kilometers, 5.6% doesn't sound like a steep climb, which means that the heavier riders might have a bit of an easier time than if it was 10% for 25 kilometers. That would have been deadly for everybody, I'm pretty sure. But they were still suffering because the length is so long. So Tarling and Turner were quickly struggling to the point that once the group was thinned out to 20, 25 riders, they were off the back. And that's the thing with satellite riders. You want them to survive as long as possible. I think Ineos wanted Tarling or Turner to survive over the top of the Monte Grappa. And that's not what happened here. They dropped on the Monte Grappa and ended up being satellite riders on the climb for the peloton. And that's when Ineos started cooking something up in the peloton. And do you want to discuss it or should I discuss it?
Before we get to the Ineos drama, the satellite riders, a word on our advertiser today, Pillar Performance. They've been with us in the Grand Tours in the past. You know them as the performance health brand developed by leading sports scientists, big in the triathlon world and now also big in the road cycling world as well. And it's not just their triple magnesium product, which I got in my bag here. You can see if you're watching on YouTube that I'm traveling. When you're traveling, disrupted sleep, I especially need their triple magnesium product. But today I want to talk to you about their standout product, their creatine monohydrate. Pillar uses CreaPure. It's a single origin, German-made creatine. It's Informed Sports certified, meaning every batch is tested for elite competition. And particularly, I've seen that cyclists, especially sprinters, maybe you're a crit dog in America or Australia or the UK. Maybe crit season's coming up. Strength and creatine go hand in hand, and also recovery. So maybe you've just had an injury, you're off the bike for a little bit, you're not load bearing. Creatine could be for you. It's not just for sprinters, it's also for recovery, replenishing ATP. That's the primary energy source your muscles use during activity, giving you more power and sprint capacity when you need it, but also, as I said, for recovery, reducing muscle damage and inflammation whilst speeding up glycogen replenishment. So, if you want to test out Pillar Performance's creatine product, you might, if you're competing as an athlete, you might not want to get those creatine products just off the shelf at your local store. And then you should go, well, not just should, you have to go with an Informed Sport certified product, which Pillar Performance's creatine monohydrate is. Go and check it out. Go to pillarperformance.shop, or if you're in North America, visit thefeed.com. And if it's your first purchase, you can use the code ROUGE, ROUGE, for 15% off your first purchase. That's a pretty big discount, and it also lets Pillar know that you came from us. So thanks to Pillar for sponsoring today's episode.
Now, because Starling and Turner dropped from the breakaway during the climb, they also become satellite riders on the climb, and we see some action. We're past the middle point of the Monte Grappa. We're in the last maybe 25% of the climb. I don't know the exact kilometer point where this happens, but Ben Turner is caught by the peloton from dropping from the breakaway. The gap is still 3 minutes to the front of the race at this point, by the way, so it's still a significant gap. But Turner starts launching it. Basically, an Ineos launch raid. We've got Turner with Castroviejo in the wheel, then Hamilton, then Bernal, then Arensman. So Arensman's kind of the sweeper in the wheel of Bernal in this situation here, but Turner starts hammering it. It's a proper tempo. Obviously, the sprinters have been up the back for a while, but it's starting to hit the earlier domestiques, the earlier climbing domestiques as well. So it's a solid tempo. Next up, they catch Tarling. Tarling does the exact same thing. Turner's off the back. Tarling does it as well. After Tarling, it's Castroviejo taking over. And gotta be honest, I was a bit disappointed by the length of and the strength of the Castroviejo turn. It felt like it wasn't really doing damage to the group anymore at that point. Then the next pull was very short. Lucas Hamilton goes to the front, is behind Castroviejo when Castro goes out the front, of course. Hamilton smashes it for what felt like maybe only 20 seconds, but in doing so, it was the kind of smash where it really lines it out before an attack can happen. And that attack does come. It's Egan Bernal himself. Arensman tries to let the gap go, and it's Del Toro that jumps from behind Arensman straight onto the wheel of Egan Bernal. And then there's a bit of a moment where those two are riding away. Carapaz reacts the swiftest of anyone else, and there's no real reaction to Carapaz, even though he comes from the belly of the group, and he jumps towards them as well. And those three ride off for a bit. And then there's two more reactions from the group behind. Arensman, which that's a very unusual move, right? Arensman is...
I think he has to do it.
I agree, but it's not really something you usually see, because there's a danger that someone usually can jump with you, and therefore it counters the move of Bernal indirectly, but he did it without anyone in his wheel. So that's the thing that really works. And after Arensman bridging, it's also Derek G that does the same, and we've got a five-man group basically up the road. Arensman starts spacing for Bernal, G is there, Del Toro is there, and Carapaz is there. And now, Patrick, we come to the discussion point, the heavy discussion point of today's stage. UAE starts spacing in the group behind, domestique train-wise, while Del Toro takes a single turn, then stops taking turns at the front. So UAE is basically chasing down the Maglia Rosa. What are our thoughts?
I was on a plane, so I didn't see it live. But again, I don't really like the way UAE is setting up the stages and erasing it. I get it in that Del Toro's with, he's outnumbered by Ineos. He's with Carapaz, who looks very scary right now. He's got another two GC contenders there. Is Arrieta still up the road? At this point?
Yes. In the breakaway.
Yeah. So then I would never pull behind. I would never, ever pull behind if I'm UAE. I would make Roglic do it. I would wait to see. I'd wait. And then Ayuso has to jump across.
Go ahead.
The reason they're not doing it is they're still going for Ayuso. They're trying to nurse Ayuso around this stage. That was what UAE's plan was. They have the brakes completely on Del Toro. Del Toro's marking all the other GC guys. Ayuso sitting in the wheels all day. They're setting a defensive pace with their domestiques. They got the numbers to do it. They're not even... Yeah, that's how they tried to set up this stage. I think it was actually smart the way they, again, kept the gap tight to the break before to stop the satellite riders. Basically, San Pellegrino happened again. That's the problem for Ineos. They never had a guy over the top. So, yeah, unless Arensman jumps, like, where's Bernal going to go? But, yeah, I would never pace behind my teammate who's the leader in the race. Just on principle.
I agree and disagree with you. We're going to fight over this for a second here. Personally, I do agree that the first move by UAE should be, okay, keep in mind, Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, it's not just Arieta in the breakaway. Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe still has Martinez and Aliotti also in the breakaway, 2 satellite riders. So UAE in this situation should, in my opinion, I would prefer to see them pressure Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe to solve the situation first, forcing them to pull back their satellite riders. If Roglic is isolated in this group, they're going to have to eventually pull the satellite riders back to do the pacing, because you don't want those riders to still be up the front. And to try and isolate Primoz Roglic by forcing Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe to do the pacing here. Worst case scenario, if that situation grows out of control, because at the end of the day, Del Toro against Carapaz and Bernal, do I have full confidence if I'm UAE for week 3? Not necessarily. We still have an unproven Del Toro for week 3. We have to be honest about that. It's still, I looked at the altitude meters for next week. It's like 22,000 altitude meters in like 4.5 mountain stages.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but that
crazy
is
hard.
That is ridiculous. So we can't 100% be certain that Del Toro will survive that. That is impossible to know. So if you're UAE, it's understandable that you don't have full confidence in that trio up the front. The optics of this is terrible, though. Chasing your own Maglia Rosa, that looks bad. That looks terrible. But it's not as bad as it looks, in my opinion. It's kind of just a missed opportunity to put pressure on Primoz.
Not just Roglic. Simon Yates is getting a free ride. Simon Yates is second on GC right now.
Yeah, but I don't see it.
No, but I would make them eat their, what do you say in Belgian, in Flemish? Eat their plate
first.
And yeah, Ayuso's just all thinking defense. So his knee's either an issue or something's up, but Del Toro's stronger than him right now. That's obvious. And so, yeah, it is strange to me. As you say, yeah, I also wouldn't feel comfortable with Del Toro going up the road with Carapaz taking 2 minutes. Because if Del Toro then has a problem, you just lose the Giro. Yeah.
But you first at least want to put some pressure on Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe to do the work for you.
Yeah, it will never get to that situation. First of all, because Del Toro can just start sitting on at a certain point, and that will then disrupt the group. Yeah, and so I didn't really understand but it's showing their hand that it's all about Ayuso still. And,
for me, it's not necessarily it's all about Ayuso. For me, it came across more as the way they've been racing in the last week comes across to me as they want this status quo, this GC situation to go into the last week. And They don't want to lose time with Del Toro. They don't want to lose time with Ayuso. They want to keep this gap.
McNulty.
Well, yeah, during the stage today, he at least did a bit of domestique work, but we'll talk about the last 10 kilometers later. But that's how it came across to me. So not necessarily that it's all about Ayuso, more that they want to keep both of them in a status quo situation for the last week. And we'll see if that pays off, because at the end of the day, either decision could backfire. Either you face right now in the second group at UAE Team Emirates, and Roglic stays in the game, and Roglic beats you in the final week. At this point in the race, that is a valid scenario that could play out. That is something. Then it's a missed opportunity this stage, because you didn't kill Roglic when you had a chance. But on the opposite side, if you don't pace with UAE, and it does get to the situation where Del Toro, Carapaz, and so forth are up the road by 2 minutes, then Carapaz, week 3 Carapaz, I'm scared of. I'll be honest about that. So he might kill Del Toro in week 3. That's kind of the...
Exactly,
It could backfire in both ways, to the point that it's a bit overblown that the situation was highly discussed during the stage, but the optics are terrible.
Yeah, and anyway, we get the breakaway continues. It's not caught on Grappa, but only the best climbers survive. And then it's caught. It restarts again. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe Verona wasn't in the original break, Benji, and he only made this group at the end, attacking out of the peloton.
Correct.
But yeah, a new break forms with much of the same guys. Frigo, Garofoli, Zana, Bardet, Bart Lemon, Stork, Fiorelli, Scaroni, Bilbao. So there's now satellite riders for Bahrain, Visma, Israel, and that's about it, really. They go up the road. Good gap, 4 minutes. It stops again. UAE are happy with that. And then Verona just straight up drops everybody. And to be honest, the second he had a gap, like with Plapp, he's who we set, 70 to 72 kilo, climbing rouleur on a 5.5% climb with a 30k rolling finish. A dysfunctional group is going to have a very, very hard time bringing him back, although we saw actually the end of Group 2 syndrome later. But he goes up the road. Garofoli, he sets out after him. Zana's also in the middle. The guys like Bilbao and Lemon are clearly half and half there. They're not pulling. Yeah. They're waiting for it to be satellite riders, but they're also following, trying to stay ahead because they want to get over the top of the Dory climb when the action kicks off. Because Benji, it's clear Ineos are going to go again and Carapaz will go again.
Yep, exactly. And we see that. Because in the peloton, we see Ineos moving to the front. We see them starting the tempo with Hamilton first now in front of Castroviejo. I'll be honest, I found that a bit weird because based on the climb before, I would have seen Hamilton as a stronger rider of the two. I didn't see strength in that pull from Castro and Grappa. Hamilton's strength was also really short, but it was more powerful. So I would have expected it to be the other way around, but I'm guessing those two riders know their legs better than I do from my seat here. So it was Hamilton, Castro, Bernal, and Arensman. And then the Red Bull kilometer comes about halfway through this Dory climb, and let's be clear, tons of breakaway riders ahead, so there's no bonus seconds available. And Bernal does attack from the wheel of Castroviejo, and we see a reaction by Del Toro, and behind that we see McNulty bringing Ayuso back pretty imminently as well. So once again, a similar scenario as the Monte Grappa climb, where they're trying to keep the status quo in my opinion, where they're trying to use Del Toro to immediately react to things, while Ayuso is being brought back by the team. And this was a shorter time frame though. This all happened in like 10 seconds here. And directly a counter by Arensman, closed by the team of UAE. So not necessarily a response by Del Toro this time around. And then it kind of slows down a little bit. UAE starts controlling again, but then EF comes around. And when EF comes around with Cepeda and Carapaz, we know what's about to happen, eh?
Yeah, a real attack's coming, a real pace, because the pace, Ineos then just started dribbling. And I get it, like, if you're Ineos, right? Like, I love the way they're riding. I love that it's aggressive. But on San Pellegrino, they tried with no satellite rider. They got no cooperation, pretty much. UAE don't want to ride. Today, UAE is with them. UAE not only don't ride, they chase them behind. And UAE got like 7 riders there. They got most of their team there. Arietta's ready to pull, McNulty, maybe not. Micah's there. Like, and also it was funny seeing Micah. By the way, this is the tell. So what Micah does is, when he's on the limit, if you start pulling as another team, he'll go to the front. He'll pull 30 seconds really hard to try and convince you that he's going to then pull. So you like the Domestique drops himself. So the Domestique says, "I'm done." He did it to Wout on Juplin in 2023 Tour de France. Yes. And he did it to Cepeda. He tried to do it to Cepeda today, and Cepeda just trying to fuck off.
I didn't realize all
50 kilos of him.
I didn't realize it in the moment, but now you're telling me it's the exact same scenario. It's the Micah, I'm gone, I'm dead moment where he's like, let me do my last bloody hard pull, and
it's a bluff.
Cepeda. Yeah, it is. It is, but at the end of the day, I like seeing it, to be honest. It was enjoyable.
It sometimes works. Because what he then does is he hopes the Domestique stops, and then he can resettle in at the tempo UAE wanted, which was just to let the break win and chill.
Exactly. And Cepeda finishes his pull eventually as well. And that's when Carapaz attacks from the wheel, and that's when chaos ensued. Chaos ensued in this group because we're like, okay, which riders are trying to follow here? And okay, Del Toro's there, Ayuso's here. We've got that GC rider, Bernal's over there. We see, Derek G still following, okay. And then I see, okay, there's no Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe rider here. And I'm looking at the multi-screen and I see a different camera angle where Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, where Roglic is hard dropped from this group to the point that Pellizzari is waiting for him and gapping him every time he pulls any tempo in the group there. So Roglic was not just struggling, he was, at this point in the race, is it Rogl over?
It's never over. I mean, Froome was 3.5 minutes behind on Fenestra, but I don't see it either. Like, he got dropped on a 5% climb today.
Yeah.
From a group of like 15. Who did he got dropped by? It was a group of...
every GC rider.
Yeah, exactly. Like every GC rider and Tom Pidcock. By the way, who still didn't lose time. Like on purpose. He still just rode with Roglic full, so he can't go on the break. What are you doing? The irony is today, Benji, his team was good. They got in the break with 2 guys. He's surrounded by Danny Martinez and Pellizzari. Danny Martinez is pulling really hard. The problem is the damage is done. Either he's undercooked, either he's washed. I think the answer is he's just crashed too many times this Giro.
Yep.
He's just crashed too many times, and maybe he came into the Giro a little bit underdone, but otherwise would have been competitive and worked his way into the 3rd week. But I've lost count of the number of times he's crashed in the recons, in the races, and I think it caught up with him today, and he just didn't have it, and yeah, that was
and
that.
He's getting dropped, but then I'm like, okay, what is the reaction going to be by everybody else here? Because if Roglic is dropped, I'm expecting everybody to realize, okay, we need to keep going now. But no, the tempo dies for like 5 seconds, and then Bernal counters. So he realized we need to keep this going. Bernal counters. People are in the wheel, obviously. Everybody can follow what's happening here. Tempo dies again. And it's Caruso that comes to the front. Your man is here, and he's pacing for Tiberi to keep the tempo going at this point in the race. On the last 2 kilometers of the Dori climb, Carapaz launches again from the wheel. Everyone in the wheel of Carapaz. Carapaz ends up pacing for a bit after that attack, I'm pretty sure. And that's when we see the more visible cracks in some other GC riders, or at least some cracks in the armor, perhaps, because that's when G and Tiberi make a counter move. G first, and Tiberi grinds to his wheel from that attack, and we see gaps in the group behind. And Bernal was gapped at a certain point. He struggled closing the gap there, but that's understandable. He has attacked 3 times already in this stage, so I understand that. Ayuso was also struggling to hold every wheel.
Ayuso, and remember, Ayuso hasn't had to do shit all stage. He has been in the wheels all stage. These other guys are jumping.
We forgot to mention important detail. Ayuso did have a mechanical just before Ineos launched their Monte Grappa raid. So
he thanked Bernal. He thanked Bernal after the stage for waiting.
Oh, that's nice. I don't think they should have waited. He took a very long time to come back, and he was like, oh, let me get another beat on, let me get another gel. At the end of the day, if you're going to take that long to get back to the peloton, everyone can attack for all I care. But
yeah, but I think Ineos' plan today was that UAE would cooperate with them. And that won't happen with Ayuso behind. And then UAE was actually like, how about we chase the Mali Rosa? So, yeah.
Simon Yates.
Simon Yates had a dig. Mr. Lemon was ahead. So we're thinking, okay, if we can get a group of 3 going, maybe there's going to be Tiberi and a Yates, and maybe then Del Toro will pull. If there's Sans Carapaz and there's Lemon ahead and Bilbao ahead, maybe you can make it work. It doesn't happen. Derek G looks really strong. This is his terrain as well, but he looks really, really strong. He's making moves quickly. You know who also made a lot of moves quickly today? Damiano Caruso. Oh, he looks sharp. But yeah, in the end, not. I'm telling you, top 5 is looking on. He's 6th. He's 1 second off 5th.
Yeah.
He's stronger than Tiberi right now. So, when in Tour of the Alps, if you watch Tour of the Alps, the multi-screen when he was with Group 3 dropping Ciccone.
So the Alps had a multi-screen?
No, not really. Just when they changed camera angle.
Oh, okay. Well,
he was in like the 4th group, but he was really strong in that 4th group. I was like, he's on. He's stopped chain smoking this year. Eventually we know nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. You know why? No, UAE, Benji, they has 6 riders. They put Micah on the front. It's not happening.
I'd say Roglic losing a lot of time is something happening in this stage.
I mean, like, subsequent to that, yeah.
Yeah, fair. We can't forget Verona still riding off to a potential victory here.
Verona, yes.
He's not there yet. Wow, you're chapeauing him already. He's not at the finish line yet. Stuff can still happen, because right now we've got a situation with Verona up the road, the group of other breakaway riders in between on 40 seconds. This GC group with about 15, 20k to go on top of the Dori climb. There's like a giant plateau. We've said it at the start. There we see UAE initially taking control, like you mentioned, but then Bilbao, who got dropped from the breakaway or waited from the breakaway, one of the two, starts spacing. The alliance is forming. Marco Frigo drops back from the breakaway, starts spacing for G. Lemon drops back from the breakaway, start pacing for Simon Yates. Quintana is there, starts spacing for Rubio, I guess. So we've got an alliance of 4.5 teams, because UAE kind of stopped when those other teams were taking over. So 4.5 teams doing proper pacing right now in this group to keep Roglic, who is losing time, 45 seconds, a minute 15. Eventually, roughly about 1 minute 30 is what Roglic loses in this stage. But at the front, I'm starting to think, okay, 17k to go. Gap is 1 minute 15 to this GC group, and we've got 4.5 teams spacing. And if they keep on going like this, maybe they can catch a second group, and bonus seconds might come into play. Because we're talking about Verona most likely winning the stage now, but the 6 and 4 bonus seconds of P2 and P3 might be available if the GC group can catch the leftover breakaway riders that are in between 15 seconds ahead with about 10k to go. Thoughts?
I started laughing because the other team started to look. So Lemon finishes his work. Frigo probably pulled the strongest and opened this gap, but they're riding for like G's top 5, I'd say, on GC. Maybe they can have higher ambitions if it happens later in the third week. But Roglic is not losing that much time. Like from 7.5Ks to go, he was on 1 minute 30 to this group, and he finishes on 1 minute 30 to this group, if I can count correctly.
Yes.
So Pellizzari alone rides as fast as this group for the last 6 or 7Ks. And I think
Martinez.
the other team...
There were
was
two.
he still there? Oh,
He
there were two.
dropped
Okay.
in the last 2k.
Fair enough. I only saw Pellizzari come into the finish. But yeah, I mean, I was surprised. Yates pulled a little bit, Adam, that is. But I was like, Del Toro he's not won a Grand Tour stage before. Like, he can win this stage in a sprint. Verona's like cracking completely. Like the two guys behind him, they bring him down from 45 seconds to 16 seconds in like 3 kilometers. Like Brandon McNulty, and now he's run for his top 10 GC again. So, and even if the stage win they didn't get, they certainly could have caught. They could have gone 15 seconds quicker. I think I didn't see the camera on the multi-view. It feels like the GC group stalled in the last 3Ks. They could have caught that group, and in the end, Del Toro doesn't sprint. Maybe he didn't feel it, but so far in this Giro, he's out-sprinted everybody. It's like, it's 6 seconds for free. Like,
At least McNulty should have paced in that GC group to make sure they catch the second group. Then there's 6 seconds available, like you say, and then Del Toro will most likely get those 6 seconds in. Most likely, a Ayuso might actually take third as well.
yeah. Well, I thought UAE were going to block it up. And you know that right-hander at 700? I thought they were going to do that late attack gimmick again with Ayuso. Why not?
They didn't.
I thought they were going to do that because he did that against Roglic. I mean, end of last week or start this week. So
Taglio Cozzo?
yeah, I can't remember. No, Taglio Cozzo, they actually competed for the stage win.
Or do you mean the one where Bernal also
It was like a
attacked
flat
in
stage
final
when the
kilometer?
break. They plap one, I think.
Yes, correct.
Anyway,
Stage
Verona wins the stage. Trek's 6th stage win of this Giro d'Italia, which is 6 stage wins in 15 stages. That's a pretty good ratio if my maths are correct. Biggest win of his career. He'd won a Dauphiné stage, a similar sort of stage. I remember Kenny Elissonde, I think, abusing him in that stage. It was quite entertaining. In 2022, they were in a breakaway, and he dropped
Was
him.
that Roglic attacking behind, or was that not one?
Oh, check which one it was. Which knee?
Ooh.
Yeah, Roglic was chasing him. Roglic finished 13 seconds behind him. He just held on. They were playing in the breakaway all day, and he won that stage. Today, he wins the biggest stage with his family at the finish. After Ciccone abandoned yesterday, they take their 6th win. Yeah, crazy for Trek. They just can't stop winning. They're on a roll. Florian Stork 2nd. A good result for him. And Scaroni 3rd. They'll take those 100 UCI points. Further back, yes, it's the main GC group with pretty much everyone in it on 29 seconds. Roglic and Pidcock on 159. And so in terms of GC, we have Roglic dropping from 5th to 10th. He's now on 353 to Del Toro. And to Ayuso, he is on 227. He's on 227 to Ayuso, which is a big gap.
Yes.
But it's not insurmountable to Ayuso. He needs Del Toro to completely capitulate and Ayuso to not be that good. On the other hand, Benji, he got dropped on a 5% climb today, so how realistic is it that he can do that?
It's over for me. I gotta be honest, yesterday, I still had the belief of Roglic might be holding his head down, might be trying to spend as little energy as possible, might be trying to prevent any pedal stroke possible to potentially just wait for week 3 and try and destroy the race on Finestre, on the multiple mountain stages we had in week 3. But at the end of the day, that thought is completely gone today. And I also don't believe that was happening at any point now, because now it just looks like he was on his limit every day up to this point, based on what I saw today. And if I pull that forward to next week, I expect that to continue happening, especially because it's such a large gap now, and everybody looked better. It was not just Ayuso, it was not just Del Toro, it was not just Carapaz. Literally, Derek G, Arensman clan better in the final here. And they've been attacking. Arensman's been attacking multiple times in this stage, and he climbed better at the end. So I don't believe in Primoz Roglic for this Giro anymore. I would love to see a major comeback. I would love it, because like Vincenzo Nibali 2016, right in my heart, potentially. But I would rather see him not do that. I want to see him try shit. If Primoz Roglic now decides, I'm 353 down, if it's injury related, I'm okay with him exiting the race tomorrow and not starting even, because then it's a valid reason. If it's just because I took a hit, that's not the Primoz Roglic I know. You know? I would want him to continue fighting, regardless of being in a lost position.
Yeah, you're right. Nibali was on 443. On stage 18, 2016 Giro, Nibali was on 443 and he won.
Hey, reminder, I sent him a beautiful tweet and he liked it. The night before, he destroyed the Giro. So my tweet is the reason he won that Giro. I'm telling you. And I had no followers back then. I was unknown. All the watts came from my tweet. I'm taking full credit for that performance.
Yeah,
I crashed Kruijswijk myself into that block of ice.
I think, I don't know. It depends. If Roglic is healthy, maybe he keeps giving it a crack. I think if he's hurt from the crashes and it's not realistic to take the time back, I can't see him doing this brutal week, Benji, to try and move up to 5th again.
Yeah.
Then he'd want to prepare for the Tour de France. So I think it just depends on his physical level. Like, they're not going to make him ride around like this. He's not going to ride around like this level for the next week. That would also be stupid.
I think so as well. I don't know. I would like to see him finish this race, and I would like it's a very hard week to come. I've said it already. We're talking 23,000, 22,000 altitude meters, maybe more in this final week of racing. That's an extremely hard week. I think altitude meter wise, it might be the hardest Giro d'Italia third week of the last 25 years. I think that's what Rob Hatch said on commentary today, and he actually did the research, so I didn't. I just copied what he said. But I will add to that when it comes to the rest of the riders, Roglic aside for a second, I'm loving the way Ineos is riding, and yes, we can criticize that multiple times it backfires, and it depends on a lot of things going right when they make those moves. Then it doesn't always go right. Most of the time it goes wrong. It has backfired on a stage before, but at the end of the day, if you keep throwing shit at the fan, it will eventually stick, and today it's stuck in a different way. It doesn't necessarily have to immediately lead to time gain by Bernal, but it might lead to continued fatigue on other riders that might crumble in week 3 as a consequence of the brutal attacks that Ineos throws at the race, day on, day in. And maybe that benefits Bernal in the long run. Maybe he ends up crumbling because of the efforts they put in every single day. Both ways can go here. So I enjoy seeing them do this. And yes, they're only 8th and 9th in GC, but I've got a feeling they're going to try their absolute best to try and get Bernal higher than that, and are still aiming for at least a top 5 and maybe a podium. I don't see it necessarily for a podium really at the moment, but it's not impossible for Bernal, because the last week is, as we said, deadly. I'm very much looking forward to seeing Carapaz in the final week, because he looks like He looks like the strongest rider with Del Toro in the race right now, based on today.
What's your final podium?
Ooh, my final podium is. Ah,
I'll give you mine. I'll let you think about it.
You can go first.
Simon Phillip. Second,
Okay.
Isaac Del Toro. First, by 20 seconds, Richard Carapaz. Carapaz looks sharp and EF look good too. Although, yeah, Cepeda for the long climbs will be good. The stages where Shaw, Duel, Steinhauser can be good, they're kind of past. Oh, Steinhauser, actually, that's not true.
Yeah. I'm still. Let me explain what I see at the moment. Del Toro is in the Maglia Rosa. We said it already. He's got a minute 20 on Simon Yates, a minute 26 on Ayuso, and 2 minutes 07 on Carapaz. If a rider like that, Del Toro is a super young rider, that doesn't necessarily impact my opinion on him. It's more that I've never seen him in a week 3 that is as hard as this. I've never seen him in anything close than this, a week of racing that was to come in the next week. And that's not because it's week 3. I'm not really a fan of the gimmick of, week 3 riders might suffer if they're young and non-experienced in that. It's more what's in the week 3. If we have 4 multi-mountain stages with 4,500 plus altitude meters in 2 of the stages, Finestre is 4,000 as well, I'm pretty sure. That's like 3 to 4 stages of 4,000 plus altitude meters. That is so hard. I've never seen Del Toro do that. I can't have full confidence that he will stay up there in GC. Right now, he looks the strongest rider on the road. I think that's fair to say. He reacts to everything. He looks easy on battles. He gives Pogacar 2020 vibes. Better because he's actually in the lead of the race at this point. But at the end of this discussion, I do feel like there's a realistic possibility that he crumbles on one of the mountain stages to come. We haven't seen anything to indicate that, though. I think I low-key also believe in Richard Carapaz winning this Giro. But we
need some bad weather. This Giro I think it's been a pretty good Giro. I think it gets taken to the next level with a rainy mountain stage and then just chaos.
My podium is third place, Damiano Caruso.
I'm telling you, he looks
celebrate,
good.
Celebrate. I want to hear it vocally.
Well, no, yeah, he should.
Well, now on a serious note, I actually don't think Caruso will podium. But third place for me, I'm going to say I've got Del Toro in third place. And I've got Ayuso in second and Carapaz in first.
That would be funny.
And I don't know whether I must be honest, I'm always for the underdog. So maybe because Carapaz is behind, I would like to see him pull off the craziness and win the Giro. But at the end of the day, I also see a realistic pathway to do that.
It's possible. But yeah, both of us would like to see, EF being able to win a Giro, signing a rider they could actually afford that was not Pogacar, Vingegaard, Remco, and winning a Grand Tour, or Roglic even. They signed a guy who was a tier below, and to, if they were able to win a Grand Tour with him, and they've won 2 stages. Yeah, it would be crazy. He does need to take 2 minutes on Del Toro and half a minute on Ayuso.
Well, for Del Toro, it simply depends on, does Del Toro crumble in the third week or not for me? Because for me, he either survives and wins the race, or he loses 5 minutes or 10 minutes.
I'm telling you, Ayuso will ride with Carapaz if Del Toro is behind.
Well, at least we have something to talk about, and come on.
Why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he? He's 30 seconds ahead of Carapaz, and he's got to take time on Del Toro. After Del Toro's been riding with the brakes on for 6 stages.
I would prefer not to see that. But on the other side, Drama Benji does want to see it.
How else is Del Toro going to win the Giro, Benji?
What do you mean? Del Toro or Ayuso?
Ayuso. He has to ride with Del Toro behind him at some point, and it's likely he's not solo.
If the other riders keep smashing it, Ineos, EF, try explode the race, and Del Toro has a bad day, then that leads to Ayuso being in pole position.
Ayuso has to win the Giro. So he can't just rely
Oh, he
on
can't just
them.
rely on Del Toro losing the Giro, what you're saying.
Yeah, he can't just hope that one day Tymon Arensman makes Del Toro crack. At some point, he's going to have to attack himself to win the Giro.
I don't see any strength for him right now. I need to see him able to do that right now. He was crumbling on the last climb today.
I agree.
Like,
Anyway.
every single one of these guys can have a bad day. I just don't think Carapaz will have a bad day.
No, especially if it rains. It's like rainy weather. He should be all right.
I like seeing Derek G in the top 5, by the way. But we're talking about GC a lot. I feel like we haven't given enough credit to Carlos Verona because I just want to highlight this man, 14 years in World Tour, I'm pretty sure. In those 14 years, he's basically domestique in most of his years. He has had a few breakaway opportunities along the way. But at the end of the day, I just love seeing a domestique get that opportunity. Yes, it required Ciccone crashing out, so not necessarily the brightest moment yesterday. But it's so beautiful to see Carlos Verona being able to take this victory. That being said, he got another argument to ask 750k for next season for his salary.
But Verona's been good all Giro from stage 1 in Albania. He was pulling really, really hard and dropped a lot of serious guys on that 5% climb. And he's a very specific type of rouleur. He can't sprint, he can't punch, and he can't actually climb that well on steep gradients because he's too big. But on 5 to 7%, he can pull incredibly hard all day. And if he gets a gap like he got today, you can't bring him back. And so, well-deserved stage win for him. And he's also been instrumental in Trek winning the first stage in the Maglia Rosa. So he deserved to win, and he got his chance, and he took it today. And yeah, I guess Trek needed a little pick-me-up after Ciccone abandoned the race. And maybe if Ciccone was still here, I don't think he wins because he's probably doing what Lemon and Bilbao are doing.
Yep.
Waiting a bit to see what happens with the GC group as a satellite rider. But yeah, that was our recap of the Giro. Hope of stage 15. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back on. We should preview Tuesday stage actually, Benji.
Yes.
Just really, really quickly. I almost forgot that.
So Tuesday stage is huge though. It is a San Valentino stage. I've spoken about the stage quite a few times already. 203 kilometers, but that doesn't actually dictate much. 4,700 plus altitude meters. It's got 4.5 climbs, I would say. The first 65 kilometers are not actually just flat. It kind of looks like false flat on the profile, but for the peloton, it's basically flat. There's an intermediate sprint at the start, but it's not too important. The first climb tops at 76 kilometers into the race. It's the Carbonare climb, so let's get some pasta there. 12.9k at 4.9%. Not a crazy climb, but if breakaway hasn't formed before then, it might form there, or it might form earlier on the slight uphill towards the first intermediate sprint before that climb. But after that Carbonare climb, descend straight to the bottom of the Candriai climb. 10.1 kilometers, 7.5%. That's a hard climb. Then a gradual descent towards the Cavedine intermediate sprint, which is kind of half a climb. It's like 10 kilometers at 2.7%. The Passo San Uldarico, that is uncategorized though, so there's no actual like K1 point on top. But then we've got the final 2 climbs. So the last 50 kilometers includes 2 proper mountains. The Santa Barbara climb, 12.7k at 8.3%. Again, that is a hard climb. They descend towards the final climb, the San Valentino climb, 18.1 kilometers at 6.2%. That's not really saying what the climb is like because the first 8 kilometers are 6.2%. Then you've got the next 8-ish kilometers, I would say maybe 7-ish kilometers with actual steep sections into the 10% in there. So that portion of the climb gets really hard. But then there's also a bit of a slight downhill of maybe half a kilometer to a kilometer before the final 2 kilometers towards the finish line. And those are once again uphill. So that is a hard climb, but it's got 2 slight downhills in it, 2 small downhills. But there is terrain here to kill a man.
I mean, that's a crazy hard stage. Like Santa Barbara, no flat afterwards, straight into an irregular but steep climb. Especially the middle third of the San Valentino is 4-5 consecutive kilometers, averaging 9%. After that sort of difficulty of a stage, I don't know what the weather forecast is, but even without rain, there should be huge gaps the way they're racing at the moment. And I think Carapaz or Ineos or whoever, they're going to go on Santa Barbara at the latest. So I think break will form, and then on the Santa Barbara, it'll start kicking off. I mean, they're going crazy on 10K 5% climbs at the moment. I mean, the Candrial is 10.1K 7.5%. There's a bonus sprint as well on the first third of the San Valentino.
You're right. They're going crazy on like 5% climbs, but the difficulty is that this stage is so difficult that it's not like someone's going to attack like Ineos on the Candrial climb. Maybe they try something crazy on the Santa Barbara climb already, but they might also just try and make the stage very hard by pacing the entire day and trying to set up an attack on the final climb and see if fatigues hits the riders. Because a 4,700 altitude meter stage, that can in itself bring a rider to their limit. And that might be the limit necessary to break Del Toro, which I'm not sure it is, but that's a possibility. So I don't know if we're going to see any crazy strategies like satellite rider stuff on a stage like this, especially because there's no valley after Santa Barbara, you know?
Yeah, and it's not high altitude. It's, straight descent into another pretty steep climb. Who have you got, Benji?
For me, this is one that Carapaz wins.
Yeah. Carapaz looks good. He looks like he could dance away. I'm going with Del Toro. I think Del Toro hangs on, and then Carapaz attacks. It's close enough to the finish, and Del Toro is able to... Carapaz just keeps going with it, and Del Toro wins the sprint with a few seconds on Carapaz.
I gotta be honest, that stage to me... I'm looking through the rest of the week here for a second. Stage 19 is also... I'm pretty sure 4,900 altitude meters with like...
if Del Toro's in pink, if he's in pink without a huge wobble after 16, you have to back him. I mean, they already should be, but...
100%.
Yeah.
Because like, if he can survive San Valentino without any crack in the armor, without not a single moment of maybe being on a gap and struggling, then there's a likelihood he might survive stage 19 as well, which is the other big one. And Finestre, which... The thing with Finestre is it weird that I trust Del Toro more there than on the other two multi-mountain stages?
I actually have no idea what Del Toro is going to do. I picked him, but he's 21. He doesn't have a long... I don't know what he's like on high mountain stages, but if Tour de l'Avenir is anything to go by, an under 23 1-week race, he should actually be coming good into these third-week high mountain stages. That was where he won the Tour de l'Avenir, so...
Yeah, but you can't compare that to me. The l'Avenir is not the Giro d'Italia hottest third week in the last 25 years.
Attacking Riccitello on a descent and can't descend, and then they're winning that way. Yeah, it's the same as responding to Carapaz in the rain in the Giro. So yeah, we'll see.
Is it scary if Del Toro shows up at the Giro d'Italia, wins it for the future, knowing that
UAE has got big problems?
Yes.
Like, this is the one. Ayuso's like, I'm not doing the Poggi schedule. I'm the second big boss of the team. I go to the Giro, and then a guy younger than him comes in and wins ahead of him. And if he's stronger the whole time, where does that leave Ayuso?
Yeah.
Get ready to learn Joao Almeida. Yeah, get ready to learn Joao Almeida then, I guess, because you can't then say to Del Toro, actually, yeah, about that Giro win last year, you're back as a domestique next year. So
maybe it's what's necessary for UAE to eventually lose some leaders and Walter to balance out a little.
Yeah. I can see one of the two not being happy. I think for the most harmony, UAE needs Del Toro to partially crack, Ayuso to follow Carapaz, win that way, Del Toro still to finish a respectable second or third. And he didn't expect to win anyway.
I think UAE almost needs to either have Del Toro win or Del Toro crack fully. Because then they can say they were right in not fully backing him.
Oh, because you mean if he only loses by a small amount, he will be like, well, if you put the brakes on me for 10 days.
If Del Toro loses by like 15 to 20 seconds, you're like...
Yeah. Brad McNally's 9th, though. UCI points, baby. Okay. Thanks for listening as always, and we'll see you on with the weekly show in a second. Till then, ciao ciao.